Uhuru. I'm Valerie Bronte, and I'm the coordinator of the Solidarity Spear Study Live. Today is November 24th, and I'm coming to you from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement Facebook page, where we host a weekly political education live stream every week here, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays. So as you're coming into the channel, please share this to your timeline. Please invite people that you think would be interested in seeing this live stream, and share to groups, share widely, and put comments in the when you've shared it, hashtag shared. Let me know how your week has been. If you are selling pies as part of the Uhuru Pies 10,000 Pies for Black Power Blueprint campaign, let me know how your sales have been going. I just got back from Oakland, California, where I was on the ground with Uhuru Pies Oakland, volunteering in the bakery and volunteering at the pie tables, selling pies, calling people, letting them know that pie is calling for them to support the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, Missouri, which will be in 2019 the site of the Uhuru Jico the community commercial kitchen, which will be the new flagship location of Uhuru Foods and Pies in St. Louis, Missouri. And that is phase 3 of the Black Power Blueprint of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. Again, thank you for joining me. I'm Valerie Bronte of Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I am live streaming on my iPad today because I'm having some technical difficulties with my 3-month-old laptop. I know that really stinks. So I'm really excited though about today's program because it's not just going to be me today. I have a special guest, Kitty Reilly, the director of the Office of Reparations and Economic Development for African People's Education Defense Fund, member of member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and a longtime solidarity organizer. She's on the ground in St. Louis right now, building the Black Power Blueprint, and she'll be able to tell us more about the exciting developments that will be happening in 2019 and how we can all get involved. So I want to see if Kitty is on right now. I'm going to call her real quick, but as people are coming in, so continue to share and leave me a comment in the comments. But again, I want to say deeply appreciative of the time that I got to be, of the time I just spent in Oakland with the comrades out there that have been building on the ground since the late 70s and 80s. The Uhuru House, the historic first Uhuru House, built in 1984. I mean, it was just incredible to be a part of that history, to know that this was the epicenter of the Black Power Revolution of the 60s. It was really, really exciting to be there and to see all the community support for Uhuru Pies in its 37th year of being a practical revolutionary solution, part of the strategy of the African People's Socialist Party to return resources from the white community to support the programs for economic development and self-determination. So I want to say, again, I'm Valerie Bronte of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We are the organization of white people working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. We are organizing in our own communities, the white community, for reparations to African people and white solidarity with Black Power. So it looks like I have like 8 people on the live stream. That's really awesome. The African People's Socialist Party, a little history about the African People's Socialist Party is that it was formed by the merger of 3 different organizations: JOMO, the Junta of Militant Organizations, the Black Rights Fighters, and the Reading Group of Gainesville, and that was formed in 1972. The merger of these 3 organizations came out of the ashes of the Black Power Revolution, crushed by the COINTELPRO counterinsurgency of the CIA and the FBI. So in 1976, the African People's Socialist Party was able to really define the principled stance that white people could have in solidarity with the African liberation struggle. And the African People's Solidarity Committee was born. That is chaired by Chairwoman Penny Hess, who has been a member since the founding of the African People's Solidarity Committee by by the African People's Socialist Party in 1976. And I know that Kitty Reilly has been a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee for decades as well. And we're going to be able to have Kitty join us today for a discussion of our article on Congo. But the African People's Socialist Party is an anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist organization, and the Burning Spear newspaper is the voice of the African People's Socialist Party. It is the voice of the African working class. It forwards the materialist political philosophy of African internationalism, which describes the conditions faced by the African working class under colonialism, and it recognizes that the world's wealth, African internationalism recognizes that the world's wealth is rooted in parasitic capitalism, which was born of the of colonialism, chattel slavery, and 600 years of imperialist expansion. So what we're looking at today, the crises of the world as we are looking at them today, political and economic and environmental, et cetera, they can all be traced to root contradiction of colonialism, of Europe's initial assault on Africa, the stealing of African people and enslaving them and bringing them to what was Turtle Island, the indigenous genocide perpetrated by Europeans here, which allowed them to dominate and take control over these lands, even though indigenous people were already settled here in the millions and resisted righteously. And they were overcome by the weaponry and cruelty and violence of the European settlers. They were overcome by the disease and plagues brought by the European settlers. And then this land was cultivated and exploited through the use of enslaved African labor. And so all white people, because we have inherited this legacy of the slave master, and African people have inherited the legacy of the slave. All white people owe reparations to African people. And reparations is not, it's certainly a self-criticism. It's a profound self-criticism for the role that we have played in our complicity with the state, in our complicity with colonialism, in our complicity with U.S. imperialism. But more than that, it's not just punitive. It is how we are able to be part of a progressive strategy of setting the world aright, turning it upside down, and making sure that nobody lives at the expense of anyone else anymore, that there is no more genocide in our name, which has been the case for the last 600 years and the last 6 centuries. What we have seen is European and United States and Canada and all of the Western, North American and European powers visiting imperialist terror upon the majority of the planet. So, the African People's Socialist Party recognizes that because of that, because there are two Americas, one in which white power imperialism lives at the expense of everyone else, what needs to happen is that white people need to return the stolen, hoarded resources, and that the question is not about racism, it is about power. It is about power over resources, control over lives, the ability to produce and reproduce life, as the chairman Omali Yeshitela says. So Chairman Omali Yeshitela, I want to appreciate the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party, under whose leadership the Black Power Blueprint programs for economic development and self-determination have really come to life all over the country, but currently now in St. Louis. So let me call Director Kitty Reilly and see if I can get Kitty to join the live stream. Uhuru, Kitty. I'm live streaming, and I'd like to bring you on camera, but I'm looking for your camera. Are you set up to come on camera?
I don't know what that means or how to do that.
Can you see the live stream for the Spear study? Are you on Facebook?
I can't see the live stream. I'm on the Uhuru Solidarity Movement Facebook page.
Okay, and there's no video. Can you refresh?
Refresh. Okay.
I'm live with 14 active viewers.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, now I see you.
Okay. All right. You can see me.
So should I put the voice on?
Yeah, you should
I can hear you.
put the voice on. Is your camera turned on?
How do I do that?
Can you try to go live with your camera? Do you have a button that allows you to join this live stream?
I have no idea.
And
I really don't know my way around the computer.
where it says post. On
the left or the right?
Okay,
Post POSTS.
Yeah, POSTS. You should have some options. I mean,
Okay,
can you leave a comment on the live stream?
Well, I'll just hit post.
But do you see like a way to post a comment on the live stream?
I don't even know how to do that.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm really self-critical that I did not anticipate that my computer wouldn't be charging. It was charging. It was plugged in. The charger works because I used it to power up another laptop, but I just don't have a third laptop or a working laptop. All I have is my iPad and my phone. I don't have any other way to join the live stream. Does anyone with any? I mean, is there? I don't even have a way to watch it outside of where I am right now. If anyone could text Penny, or sorry, text Kitty how to post in the live stream. I'm trying to look at it right now to see like what it might look like. But
I see you.
You can see me and you can hear me.
Yeah.
But you can't find any way to turn on your camera. I'm looking this up right now.
How to do it.
This just recently happened. The computer was completely fine as we were doing the tech rehearsal, and then it stopped. It stopped. The battery went down, and it said I needed to plug in, but it was already plugged in. I can see myself live. I see that I'm on the phone. I see comments in the live stream that I can't see here. Let me see if I can turn on the comments. No, I can't. So on the iPad, I can't see any comments. I can't see Penny, or sorry, I can't see Kitty. I can't see you as a person that I can bring into the live stream. Are you watching? Are you clicked into it? Oh, are you on your phone?
No, I'm talking to you.
Oh, yeah, you're on the phone, but you're looking at your laptop. You just can't find a way to come onto this. All right, that's too bad. I have to figure out what happened, why my laptop, which is like brand new, which I bought because I was having contradictions with my other laptop, isn't charging. Because yeah, after 3 months, it should still work, but but that's the reality of this situation right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Kitty on speakerphone after we go through the article, but we do have to start. I want to start with the articles and the discussion rather than spend the time troubleshooting something that I don't really understand what has happened, and I don't really understand how to fix it right now. So I'll call you back and I'll put you on speakerphone because I just don't know how to fix this otherwise.
All right, great.
All right. Uhuru.
All right.
All right. So the thrust of today's article is in light of, certainly the conditions that we were facing out in Oakland, where all the people of Oakland were under hazardous air quality alerts. It was the worst air quality in the world last week in Oakland, and we saw that. And we saw that was the result of certainly climate change, but also parasitic capitalism, corporate capitalist greed, which had led to the negligence of transformer and power lines, the PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric's equipment in Northern California led to sparks, which created a fire exacerbated by climate change, and that was what led to one of the worst wildfires in California history, the most deadliest fire in California history. The news is too cowardly to even report how many people have died in that fire. They're reporting them as 1,000 people are missing. Those people have perished in their homes because there was almost no escape from the blazes. And, and just to think that it was because of corporate greed and corporate negligence that all of those families died in paradise. So much property was destroyed, and people having to start all over again, completely devastated, even if they were able to come out of it lucky enough to with their lives. I mean, we're thinking about, this is the contextualization of the crisis here within the United States, within the illegitimate borders of the United States. There is just intense chaos, intense crisis. And so then when you look at headlines that are talking about the conditions that Africans are facing because of U.S. imperialism in Congo, which is a place that is one of the largest, it's the largest landmass of Africa, even though the Congolese border was drawn up by colonial powers. The largest landmass in Africa, almost as large as the United States, and just rampant bloodshed, terror, misery, poverty, starvation, child slavery, child soldiers, for the last over the last 2 decades. So it's been more than 20 years of nonstop terror for the people of Congo. And the reason why is because the land of Congo sits on the most mineral wealth of the world. The world's mineral wealth rests in Congo. So that is why it is also the site of such immense human suffering as a result of imperialist Western powers trying to exploit the resources there. So this is the article, Another Imperialist Bloodbath in Benin, Democratic Republic of Congo. Not a single voice to protest from the UN. On the nights of September 22nd and 23rd, 2018, at least 17 Africans were brutally assassinated with machetes and knives, wounding and mutilating many more. Multinational media corporations such as CNN, BBC, RFI, Reuters, and others are conveniently silent. This recurring neocolonial violence against the African masses in eastern Congo has already caused nearly 5,000 deaths since 2014. In the Benin territory, our workers, peasants, women, elders, and our children are regularly slaughtered and raped. Our bodies are chopped or eviscerated like in medieval Europe. A few days after these horrific atrocities, on September 25th, in front of the UN, the United Nations Assembly, Joseph Kabila, as expected, displayed his usual unemotional plastic face and ignored the Congo genocide with its over 8 million people dead. He used the UN Assembly conference as the world stage to show his abominable disdain of the African working class. On the contrary, his love for the representatives of the status quo was boundless. He indeed first paid tribute to Kofi Annan, the U.S. puppet Secretary General at the United Nations, who had covered up for the U.S. genocides in Africa, notably in Sudan, Somalia, Rwanda, and the Congo. Then he took time to recognize Antonio Guterres, the current Secretary General, and also the election of Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garcés from Ecuador as the President of the 73rd UN National Assembly. Kabila mentioned in the massacres in Benin in passing. It was just a footnote in his insignificant speech at the UN conference. There cannot be peace under neocolonialism. Joseph Kabila has lied in his speech at the UN conference when he affirmed that, quote, peace was consolidated in the center of the country, unquote. The figures of neocolonial terror in Kasai do not need any comments. Quote, since August 2016, nearly 5,000 people have been killed in Kasai and more than 1.4 million people have been displaced. Attacks on civilians continue in Kasai, and there is a risk of further intensification as the underlying causes of the violence have not been resolved. Today, nearly 4.5 million people throughout the Democratic Republic of Congo have been displaced. Since last December, violence has intensified in Ituri province with terrifying incidents of killings, rapes, and beheadings. Civilians also continue to be targeted in the Kivu provinces where armed groups and security forces have killed more than 460 people and abducted 730 others since January. In the Tanganyika province, more than 200 people have been killed and many villages and IDP camps have been set on fire since the resurgence of violence in mid-2016, says the Human Rights Watch of July 3rd, 2018. UN soldiers with their $1.4 billion a year budget failed to protect African people in the Congo for nearly 20 years. The UN soldiers in the form of MONUSCO, Mission de l'Organisation des Nations Unies pour la Sorry, my French sucks. Pour la stabilisation and République démocratique du Congo, and its French acronym, are not there to protect and save the African working class and peasants from neocolonial genocide. This was as true in the 60s as it is today, too. The S in MONUSCO is for stabilization of imperialism in the Congo, that is securing the looting and the looters of the Congo and prevents the collapse of the neocolonialist government, which in the Congo is inexistent in social life of the people. The Congolese government has ceased to perform its basic functions, such as organizing the functioning of hospitals, roads, schools, etc. The forces of MONUSCO always show up when the massacres has already been completed to certify that they have truly occurred. Bourgeois press revealed that until recently, MONUSCO had no solid intelligence about the Allied Democratic Forces and of the local situation in the district of Beni, for the simple reason that MONUSCO's focus was never the ADF, but rather M23, a group of Tutsis supported by Paul Kagame's army, and the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR, a Hutu neocolonial organization banned by the Rwandan government that considers it as a terroristic organization and responsible for the 1994 Rwandan genocide. Since 2014, MONUSCO has shifted from FDLR and other armed groups from Rwanda to focus on ADF, despite frequent reports from locals that many of the massacres were carried out by people who spoke Kinyarwanda, the language from Rwanda. Kabila's army is worse than MONUSCO. Its rank-and-file soldiers have received orders not to intervene, and any officer who dares to intervene gets a solemn warning of severe consequences for his life from his commanders. So who are ADF, and why did these massacres keep happening in Beni? All of the killings these days in Beni are blamed on ADF from Uganda. This group, created in the 90s to fight against Museveni's neocolonial dictatorship in Uganda, has never been a threat to Kampala's government. Museveni's petty bourgeois government, to deflect his brutal policies against his petty bourgeois opposition, has used the ADF. According to the U.S. Congressional Research Service, quote, the State Department considers Uganda to be a key regional partner and valuable ally in combating terrorist threats in the region. And indeed, between the U.S. military and economic assistance to Uganda rose steadily from the U.S. $77 million to U.S. $399 million. This included substantial military training, equipment, and financing allocations to Uganda's People's Defense Force. And this is the source is Christophe Tissetta and Daniel Fahey. Beni is in northern Kivu, in East Congo, that possesses vast mineral resources of coltan, the necessary metal needed to make mobile phones, Xboxes, computers, and other high-tech electronic products. The success of Apple, Samsung, Microsoft, and other parasitic capitalist companies begin in the Congo. This is where African workers are paid less than $1 a day to extract minerals at gunpoint, not knowing if they will return home alive or will find their relatives safe when they go back home. Down with neocolonialism, all power in the hands of the African working class. And then there's some photos. right there. It says, African petty bourgeoisie in Congo are doing the bidding of white power imperialists by murdering thousands of Africans while bourgeois media fails to report on these issues. Africans gather outside the UN base to protest the killings at the hand of the African petty bourgeoisie. And so we can contextualize this with the onslaught of media discussing the death of the missionary in the Sentinel Islands, of the Sentinelese people who had shot the approaching Christian missionary who had made landfall there. We can contrast that with the excessive focus on certain aspects of people who have lost their property due to wildfires in California, which has mostly been dominated by tales of celebrity houses that have been consumed by the flames. But this is how the bourgeois media functions. They're never going to tell you about how the United States is meddling within and pitting various forces against each other between Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo to continue to destabilize those regions with violence and terror so that they can secure their domination of the resource extraction there, which of course funds the entire tech industry. So we're talking about coltan. There's not a single device, a single smartphone that is built today without coltan. There's not a single laptop or tablet that is going to be sold during this holiday season that is not built without coltan. And so the entire overconsumption of the Western world during this period of holiday shopping, and then the charity stances of charity giving, are both uniquely tied to this parasitism. Why would you need to have charities if there wasn't something particularly sinister and definitely wrong and exploitative about having a ruling class that lives and basically sucks the blood off of every working class person on the planet? So I want to open this up to Penny, because there is a solution to overturn this. There is a solution to overturn this sick system, but it is about power and resources. And this is something that we're able to understand because we study the burning spear, because the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. This is the reason that we're able to understand this, is because we know as white people, we can't come to these conclusions on our own, because look at the media that we consume. It's all skewed to prop up imperialist agendas, to prop up colonial agendas, and to put the blame for the violence of Africa on the African petty bourgeoisie, when the blame for all of the chaos and all of the destruction of Africa is squarely upon the colonial powers that attacked Africa in the early 1400s. And so that's what we're talking about, where we're saying that colonialism never ended, and that reparations are due not just for slavery, but for colonialism, which continues to this day in the form that we see it today, in neocolonialism and Western imperialism. And I know that Kitty will have a lot to say about this, but yes, something that I skipped over because I'm a little flustered, because when your expensive laptop stops working with all of its parasitically obtained coltan, you're sitting there thinking, oh man, I really have to worry about fixing that right now. And I missed a really important part of our presentation, which is I have to properly define our 3 principles of unity of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And so when Kitty comes on, we'll do that. Uhuru. Uhuru. All right, so we're on the live stream right now. You're going to see me. It's going to be a couple second delay on your computer.
Yeah.
So let's just talk here on the phone, and you're on speaker, so this should catch. So
I really appreciate the Burning Spear study today that you're leading, and the National Central Committee of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement that you are part of, and lead weekly these USM spear studies. And if anything, reading this article really makes one appreciate the Burning Spear newspaper, the African People's Socialist Party media, because it is the only place we get the truth.
It is true.
Here's the U.S. putting forward, that they provide economic assistance, in the form of this and that and that and this. It only makes me think of, what they provide assistance for is armed forces, is for more guns, is for AFRICOM and to develop AFRICOM in every city, in every country of Africa to suppress and repress any resistance from African working people, African peasants, to control their own resources and land and touch it, to be able to live and have their children live, past age 2, or even be able to be born. And, the chairman often says, he's famous for this, he's well known for everything, but this famous salute, Africa is not poor, it's being looted. And that really turns things right side up. And I really unite with what you were summing up about the mineral resources of Congo and Africa as a whole. And Congo actually is the wealthiest country in the world, yet the poorest country for the actual African people who live there. And that's parasitism at its height. It actually has the second largest river in the world, which is the Congo River. Totally rich soil, abundant deposits of copper and cobalt, gold. It's the second largest producer of diamonds, cobalt, uranium, coltan, and oil. That's just some of it. And this is the basis for white power being in Africa. It is the mineral resources. And when there was direct colonial rule, we could see the white man, the white woman, as a direct ruler, it was obvious, who the enemy was. And it was, a tremendous period of the African Revolution worldwide in the 1960s, not only inside the U.S., with the Black Panther Party being at the center of the Black Revolution of the 1960s, and also JOMO, the Inter-Militant Organization, founded by African People's Socialist Party Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the precursor to the African People's Socialist Party. But there were revolutions happening all over the world. The chairman sums it up as the main trend in the world was revolution of the colonized and oppressed. Revolutions for what was called national liberation struggles, and it was all over Africa. In South Africa, which is Zambia, in Angola, in Mozambique, in Guinea-Bissau, just throughout the African world. And the resistance was so great, it became impossible for direct colonial rule from Belgium, from England, from Germany, from all the countries that had their hand in Africa since 1885, controlling its resources for our benefit as white people living in Europe and the U.S. and everywhere we've landed, dominated. So when it became impossible for direct colonial rule, neocolonialism was set up. But a lot of countries like Ghana elected Kwame Nkrumah. He was the first democratically elected president of Ghana after Ghana had its liberation. Nominal flag independence is called now. Patrice Lumumba from Congo, he was one of the greatest heroes of the African Revolution and inspiring, beloved by African people all over the world that live in Europe, in the U.S., and in Africa itself. And he was elected in 1959. They toppled Belgian rule in Congo. Mm-hmm. Belgians were particularly brutal. And Patrice Lumumba was democratically elected, and really within a number of months, he was assassinated by the United States through their Central Intelligence Agency and by the Belgian government, and in conjunction with neocolonial puppets. But he represented the people, the masses. They loved him, and he came from the middle class. But he, like Kwame Nkrumah, dedicated their lives to the people, the peasant and working class. He was a champion of the African Revolution. And when you look at, so Lumumba was brutally killed. He wasn't just assassinated. He was brutally murdered. And there's movies about it you can watch. But he was, captured, tortured, let go, captured, tortured. He was brutalized in the plane, taking him to another site to the point where the pilot on the plane told them they had to stop. He was vomiting from being so upset by hearing the reports are happening in the plane that he was flying with, the agents of U.S. and Belgian imperialism beating and breaking every bone in the woman's body. Then they strapped him to a tree and shot him, and then they dismembered and chopped up his body and burned it in oil drums and buried them where they couldn't be found. I mean, that's how much they feared him. They had to destroy every single part of this man who was a champion of oppressed and colonized people and one of our heroes as well. So, this is the process of instituting neocolonialism. This is not an electoral process. This is dismembering any sense of people having people's power. So it was, and then they installed neocolonial Mobutu, the worst neocolonialist, who, is now, taken over by other neocolonialists that the article is describing. But, they say, like 80 to 85% of all the resources of Africa leave Africa. So when they say, China's coming in and giving X amount of money to build roads and highways, it's only to enhance the extraction of mineral resources that then China has control of, and along with all the other European countries in the U.S. But it leaves about 15% in the country, of which 10% goes to neocolonialists, and that's what they're battling for. Their little 10% of the lackeys for white power.
Crumbs.
And that leaves 5% of the whole economy for the people. And that's why all you see is mass starvation. In proxy wars to deepen it. They want the resources. So it's parasitism. This is how we get a paycheck. I mean, this is it. This is the wealth. This is the wealth of the world that generates the ability for us to actually have an income to pay our rent, blah, blah, blah. Social welfare down generation to generation.
Uhuru, I just want to appreciate Director of the Office of Reparations Economic Development, Kitty Reilly, from the African People's Solidarity Committee, works directly under the leadership of Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Shatella, the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, Missouri, for being on the phone with us today. Unfortunately, I wanted to have a side-by-side live stream, but even my laptop decided that it didn't want to participate in parasitic capitalism today, and decided to take a protest. I'm going to figure out what's going on with that. But yeah, just to connect to every single, device that we're all accessing this live stream from is part of the human suffering of African people, and is part of the exploitation of this suffering by the United States, and certainly by European powers. And then, and every product that is produced by the mining of this mineral wealth, and all of the investment products that are bought and sold on the markets, on the stock exchange, by financiers. Every part of the wealth of the world is rooted in the colonial extraction of minerals of Africa, and certainly the unpaid stolen labor and stolen lives of African people that Europe and the United States propagated for hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, there are 2.9 child slaves estimated to be, or children estimated to be enslaved in Congo today, that many are employed in mining concerns, where the profits just flow. They just flow directly to Europe, directly to Canada, directly to China. And, I want to appreciate what Kitty was saying about the Chinese infrastructure investments within Africa. It's just like the United States so-called Peace Corps. The only reason that the Peace Corps exists is to teach people English, put in electricity and plumbing, put in meager infrastructure to support imperialist exploits. That's the only that. And if you talk to any person who's actually been in the Peace Corps, they'll be able to tell you exactly that's the case. They go and get jobs when their service contract is up in Halliburton, because why wouldn't you just go from Peace Corps to War Corps? I mean, it's essentially the same thing. So every house in America right now, every person that's tuning into the study has a little piece of coltan that was stolen from Africa, that is powering our technology that touches every bit of our lives today. And as we see the other adverse effects of climate change, mass pollution, the collapse of ecosystems in our oceans, and just all sorts of dangerous conditions that will claim, thousands and thousands of lives. We see even white power itself in crisis, sending out reports that, not only will the natural disasters get worse, but the planet itself will be unable to sustain human life if we don't change the economic system. This is what the UN is saying. If we don't change the economic system, not if you don't put straws, in the garbage. If you don't change the economic system, in the next 12 years, it's going to be curtains for all of humanity. And that is why it is so incredibly urgent for people to join an organization under the correct leadership. And this is why, this is why we bring this study into the white timelines, because white people, we have all of these stolen resources. They're hoarded in our communities. They're hoarded in our homes. They're in our banks. They're in our investment portfolios. The entire wealth of the world is concentrated in Europe and in North America for the most part. While the most wealthiest country, mineral-wise, resource-wise, those people are starving, unable to feed themselves, have to work a whole entire day to just get one meal. And, there is a positive vision for the future being forwarded by the African People's Socialist Party, led by Chairman Amalia Shatella. And this is something that we want to celebrate. We want to certainly bring into everybody's consciousness, make sure that everybody knows that there's an alternative to being complicit with white power imperialism, and being complicit with the colonial legacy that we see in the police violence and gentrification that has its stranglehold on African working class communities today, here within the illegitimate borders of the so-called United States, on stolen indigenous land. We see the impact of this system. It touches our lives at every minute of the day. There is some legacy of what side of colonialism we were on. Whether you're a colonized person, it touches you every moment of the day. If you are the colonizer, if you're part of the oppressor nation, the privilege, the social capital you have, the access to resources you have, it all rests on stolen lives, labor, and resources. And there has to be a better way. And as revolutionaries, we're optimists, as the chairman says. We have faith. We have faith in a better future. We believe in the people, and we believe the people can be won to organization to make this happen, to make a revolution happen. Because a revolution is not about just tearing something down. It's about building an actual future. And that's what the African People's Socialist Party is trying to do. They're preparing to govern. And they're preparing to take power and to take back control over resources and land that belongs to all African people everywhere. Uhuru. Uhuru, Kitty, are you still there?
Yes, I am. And I really unite with your whole summation and want to give just an example of what happens when we think imperialism is in our interest and capitalism is in our interest, and do not take a stand. I mean, here we're talking about Congo. Now, I'm sitting in St. Louis, Missouri, and it's only very recently that the film came out, Atomic Front, from mothers in the communities just 5-6 miles away in St. Louis County. And they're getting all kinds of forms of cancer. Mm-hmm. And tracking it down, and it shows the children dying at age 9, 15. One of the mothers who was a leader in the movement herself during the process of making this film. And what happens, here's U.S. imperialism extracting everything out of Congo, let's say. Well, one of the things is uranium. And we all know about how the U.S. is the only country that dropped an atomic bomb. It dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan during World War II, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So they bring uranium out of Congo and they create atomic bombs in the city of St. Louis. And they fill up the bombs, and they have all the materials right in here. Mallinckrodt Corporation, the greed of the corporations. None of the workers really know the implications of what they're working with, nor do the drivers that drive the leftover tailings in open, big, huge trucks, 5 miles up from the city of St. Louis into the county, and dump it on this land site by the airport. And there's not even a covering over it. So it's for years like that. But then, there's everyone's getting cancer who worked at Mallinckrodt at the time, because they take the uranium from Congo, create atomic bombs, drop them on Asian people, and all you have to do is look it up and see the brutality of what the radiation did, burning people alive days and days afterwards. I mean, it's the most brutal thing that ever happened, and the greatest loss of life in one stroke. With all the guys in the Army and the Air Force cheering, oh good, that's the end of the war, we can go home now. We in the U.S. had a flourishing economy after World War II, having not been damaged, the country infrastructure itself, but now having more and more control of resources that Europeans had control of prior. So one of the families, in trying to prove that the illness and the cancer in their home came from these uranium tailings from 1944 creation, had their house inspected, and they found Congo DNA throughout their house. And that's the way they proved that it was, building those atomic bombs. It caused their whole community to be sick and ill. But it's just almost profound to read that. It is one world and one world economy. I see people are posting about Atomic Front. It's one world economy, and we're all tied into that world economy.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the chairman used to sum up. So I just got 2 new tires, at the beginning of the fall on my car. But, and then you had, all the workers at Firestone and in Detroit complaining about the wages, which were exploited, but had nothing to really do with ending colonialism or a colonial economy, because the rubber came from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And Leopold, King Leopold, he would chop off the hands and feet and ears and noses from children, women, and men who didn't produce enough on the rubber plantations. I mean, this is where the beginning of being able to have a tire for your car began. That's the worker. It's slavery, African enslavement. That's the oppressed worker. And it's one world economy, but our end of it is parasitic end. So we're born into that social system. So we're born into this parasitic thing that, is all around us. And all the philosophy and all the news that we get and all the summations we get, and we go to college and go to high school, get this analysis, and it's all to justify that economic base of this economy, which is parasitism through and through. That's why the question of reparations is so profound for white people, because in the process of donating, of giving reparations in every form, getting some of those resources to something as incredible as the Black Power Blueprint, which is completely transforming the African community and the beginning of self-government. The whole process of acquiring property and land and liberated territory. These are really critical things, because they could have everything, just like the people of Congo could have everything if they had control of their own resources. They would have not be able to worry about feed, clothe, and house our people. They would produce themselves. We would see the manifestation of it, but it's in our community. It lines our streets. It's the cafes in our community. It's the grocery stores in our community. You see the divide in St. Louis in a very profound way.
Absolutely. But, the conditions on the north side of St. Louis, which are profoundly, different than the south side, the white side of St. Louis. The African working class on the north side of St. Louis has no grocery stores, has no independent economic activity, has police that are there to criminalize the people there, stop them for anything, stop their cars for anything. There's police surveillance, on every lamppost in North St. Louis. And Kitty, can you tell us about the Black Power blueprint? Because I want to just we need to understand how different things are since the Black Power blueprint has been on the ground. There is a community center and event space and offices for the organizations that are still on the ground there since 2014, when the African People's Socialist Party came to support the righteous African resistance of the people of Ferguson rising up against the police murder of 18-year-old Michael Brown on Canfield Drive. So today's study, like all studies that we do, has a goal of reparations to the African Revolution, to the African People's Socialist Party, these economic institutions that create a liberated economy for African people so that they can have the power to feed, clothe, and house themselves. And this study's goal is $75, and it's going directly to the Black Power Blueprint. BlackPowerBlueprint.org is where you can go to make a pledge in the comments. Let us know how much you're going to pledge today, and then go to BlackPowerBlueprint.org and complete your pledge. And Kitty, can you tell us about the work that has already been victorious and what is on the slates for 2019?
Okay, thank you, Valerie. Well, I just do encourage everyone, this is part of our whole Giving Tuesday push, to take another kind of stand during this holiday season that benefits so much, just the perpetration of corporate greed and a handful of a percentage of the country controlling the whole economy. This is the way we get money into these projects, and this is it was so recent. You know that the Uhuru movement has programs, and it has long-term institutions that earmarks, the difference with the African People's Socialist Party and perhaps other organizations. And it brings tremendous confidence to the African working class about what they can build and what they can do. And St. Louis, the chairman came to St. Louis. He came after the murder of Mike Brown. He built organization for 3 years in St. Louis that became the national center, the international center of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement. He sent Deputy Chair to do a fact-finding trip to try to locate a building for an Uhuru house so that the organization could have a building to organize around, could start really beginning building programs. And that was the beginning of it. Under the brilliant leadership of Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Shatella, she carried out the chairman's vision. She actually came for a week, and people in Impedum gave her, a place to sleep, and she, located a building, and even to the surprise of everyone, it was in the heart of the most impoverished area of North St. Louis, which is 94% African. And frankly, I would say it's about 99.98% African. Because I've been here for 16 months and have seen maybe 4 other white people in the whole 16 months. It is like Africa. It's incredible in terms of African culture, but the poverty is intense. The only economy in the area is street walking. I mean, that is the God's honest truth. I thought that had been eliminated in a certain kind of way. I mean, that is it. There is a horrible store for potato chips and white bread and soda and beer, on one, a block away on the corner with hostile people who are not Africans owning it, and mistreatment and disrespect for the community. There's a gas station with the same thing, and they're stealing drugs out of it. I mean, it's people that are not from the community and hostile to the community, and have no interest. That's it. You have to literally drive 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get to a grocery store.
It's true.
And I don't know how many people really have cars. So here's the party with its Black Star Industries and African People's Education and Defense Fund really coming in, taking a building that had been vacant 15 to 30 years. We hear various stories, but it was vacant, it was condemned. And through a process of identifying African contractors, African tradespeople, Mexican tradespeople, this building was transformed in less than a year. And I mean, the top third of the brick on the back was down. I mean, all the windows were broken. Every window was broken or non-existent. I mean, it was really quite a condemned building, you can imagine. And there's Deputy Chair in there, and making this thing happen. It was 108, 100 degrees, 106 that first summer. It was trying to find housing. Housing had no air. It was like really the brutal summers that then went into the brutal winters. And trying to learn how to do this. And it was phenomenal, uplifting to the community. And first of all, it employed highly skilled tradespeople that often find it hard to get hired in the white community. It's so segregated. They don't give the jobs to Africans to renovate their homes. And they're the ones with the money to renovate their homes. There's a tremendous campaign for reparations, raised money, and some of the existing APDF institutions contributed. And this was phenomenal. It has the absolute beauty of the African working class. It is really beautiful in the way, under Deputy Chair's leadership, it came to life. The first floor is a community center. It's got a Sunday faith-based rally that brings out people that would have followed Martin Luther King, that are now part of the Black Power blueprint. And it's had, poetry events, Thanksgiving family of 40 rented for their Thanksgiving dinner. Young people have there's been, cultural events, poetry events, and also fashion shows. I mean, it goes on and on. But it is absolutely something so lovely and beautiful and affordable for the community. They can have Sunday rallies and community meetings. People from the community come in. New people come in every single week. People come in, are elated about it. And the second floor is offices for Black Star Industries, Antietam, APDF. And now the third floor right now is being sheetrocked. It was what do you call it? Demo, pulled out all the old stuff, and electricity went in during the first phase. And now, all the walls and the ceiling insulated. And that's more space for programs for offices because already we're growing out of it. The buildings next to it, next door, across the side street, were demolished. They had to be. That was the city-owned property that you can get for like $100 or whatever. Then you demolish it. We couldn't get help from the city to demolish these buildings, even though they would be for economic development projects. So we raised the resources. Everybody gave resources from all over the country, from all over the world. People donated. And they were demolished. They could not be resaved. They couldn't be rehabbed. They were too far gone. Glass strewn, mildew, mold, the roof falling down to the third floor and that collapsing to the second floor. I mean, that's how the city looks in the area we're in. I mean, it's really an eyesore. It's a bombed out war zone. And so that now is a beautiful area. There's 3 of the 4 fruit trees planted by Mr. Gary Brooks, who has a little garden next door that's actually part of this land. And he will be coordinating the garden. And he's getting all the mulch and making the plans for spring. And then there'll be the One Africa, One Nation marketplace. And one of the women that we have come to the building, she knows all the black farmers in Missouri and black growers. And we'll be getting all produce and be able to have, at the market, it'll be a farmer's market as well as a community market where people can sell their things and earn money and become entrepreneurs. There's so much about the programs coming in 2019 out of the Uhuru House and the One Africa Marketplace. It's incredible. And then the flag went up. When the flag pole at 50 feet with a 25-foot wide red, black, and green flag was flown, the cars were almost getting into accidents, pulling over. Getting up on the sidewalk, jumping out, taking pictures, getting in pictures, walking their children up to it, pointing up to it, telling their children the history of the red, black, and green flag and what it means. It's profound. I mean, people in the park, when one of the spear sellers from Antietam in the party was out selling spears, and then he had to leaflet for the Halloween because we weren't even fully ready, but we had to start that program. And we had the Halloween there that was coordinated by Brandy Arrington and the Black Power Blueprint Steering Committee under Deputy Chair Ona Zanae Shitella, and it was phenomenal. It was fantastic. It was real programs. It wasn't just give them candy and they go home. It was a real program, and just people were elated. And then the whole time, one of the spear sellers was handing people flyers, upcoming Halloween, get dressed up, family activity, etc. Then would sell the burning spear, and they would say, "Oh, you're the people with the flag, right? Okay, yeah, give me that leaflet, and yeah, give me a spear." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They knew this is in the interest of the community. And then you go another block and a half down, and there's more of those condemned buildings, LRA properties that the nonprofit got. And then we have to have our plan. You know, you get about a year and a half to do a plan to take those buildings down. We tried to climb in them to see if there's anything to be rehabbed, you know, but they're going to have to come down. But that's land, and that's land right on West Florissant. That could be a real urban farm. It's about 5 plots, and next to it is a 4-plex apartment, Black Star Industries, and we've got to get heat in the winter. This will be my second winter, and it's really brutal here, especially after living in Florida and California before that. I mean, the really brutal winters, and people know who live in Boston and upstate New York. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we got to get heat in them before the winter, and we've already gotten a lot of electrical work done, et cetera. And we've had all volunteer work days, but then we really got to get down. You know, we're doing the floors, getting fixtures. There are no refrigerators or stoves, you know, in this 4-plex. But the first thing is the heat, to get HVAC in and hot water heaters. And that way no pipes freeze in the winter, and we can be working on it with all our volunteer days throughout the winter. And then we'll be doing GICO, the Uhuru Community Commercial Kitchen, and African Independence Workforce Program. This housing I'm talking about is for the African Independence Workforce Program.
The 4-plex.
I mean, the Black Power blueprint is humane. It's so humane. It's so, it's African self-government. Because when Africans, they understand the mass incarceration of African people that has happened since the 1980s and the defeat of the Black Power movement. And when people come out of prison, they have nowhere to live, they can't get a job, they're down as a felon, you know, and this is addressing all of that with training programs in the food industry. And other people already say, I want plumbers, I want to train people on how to be plumbers. I want to train people on how to be to do the brickwork.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really bringing together the most, you know, incredible community of skilled people as well. I mean, it's just, I mean, the vision is profound, and it's going to happen because it is the Black Power blueprint, and it's affecting everyone in the entire region and around the world. Yeah. People want to do it in New York. Everybody's, oh, yeah, we want to do it. We want to do it.
Everywhere.
Anyway, yes, we're...
Uhuru. I mean, as you can hear from this incredible summation of the upcoming, certainly already the victories that have been seen in just the last year of the opening of the Uhuru House. I work in construction estimating. When I work in film and TV, I'm a construction accountant, and to see a build and a renovation of that magnitude happen in the amount of time that it happened in, and just how well done it was, and how well organized it was, and how the whole entire community was behind it in St. Louis, and you know, and was uniting with the vision of taking back the north side of St. Louis, taking back these properties. Uhuru, did you have something to say?
No, I'm just...
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, just, I mean, and you see that when you're there. I've had the honor of being in St. Louis for the USM 2018 convention, and then, of course, the magnificent 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party, which is at the beginning of October, and to see the way that the community reacts, and what Kitty says is 100% correct. The only economic activity that you see around the Uhuru House is street walking of the variety that you don't even see on the streets of you know, major Eastern Seaboard cities anymore. I mean, that's how bereft of any sort of economic activity that could, you know, uplift anybody. The North Side doesn't have it, but it will have it once the Uhuru GICO Community Commercial Kitchen opens and the African Independence Workforce Program opens. And that's what this housing is for right now. This phase right now is like Kitty said, to get the HVAC into the 4-plex and to clear more condemned properties, because that's how the LRA works. That's how they're able to get these properties from the city, is that this is an exclusive process. It's not open to everybody from every economic background to take foreclosed upon properties and renovate them. You have to have capital, and you have to have a business plan in order to renovate that property, and they give you a timeline in which to do it in. And through organization, the African People's Education and Defense Fund is able to do that, is able to purchase those properties, and is able to provide that timeline and that plan to overturn whatever needs to be overturned to get that property to be, no longer a blight upon the community, no longer a fire hazard. But to see that kind of work, it's inspiring. It's just inspiring to me, but it's also inspiring the community to come together and organize to strengthen this program. And, and we could see it in every city in America. We could see it in every African working class community in America. And the way that we'll see it is through the support of people like you, of people like me, white people taking a stance of reparations and supporting the Black Power Blueprint. So again, I said our goal today is $75, and $75 in the white community, depending on where what side of luck you're on in the white community. You might have access to $75 right now to support the Black Power Blueprint. Or you might want to support the Black Power Blueprint but have limited access to resources and might want to get involved in throwing a fundraiser, donating your birthday to the Black Power Blueprint, supporting the Giving Tuesday push by setting up a Giving Tuesday fundraiser, supporting APEDF. And all of that information is we have meetings weekly around getting involved in Giving Tuesday and the 10,000 Pies for Black Power Blueprint campaign, which is led by Uhuru Pies, another economic institution of APEDF, the African People's Education and Defense Fund. So I'm going to pledge today, and I'm going to go through the comments so that we can interact, because I know it's a little tricky on this live stream format. I don't get to just respond to everyone's comments. I'm going to pledge today towards the Black Power Blueprint, and I want you to put your pledges in the comments of how much you're going to pledge, and if somebody can do the entire 75, put that in the comments right now. I want to salute Kristen Forthen, joining us from Spokane, Washington today, a solid supporter of the Black Power Blueprint and the Solidarity Spear Study. Every week, tuning in from Spokane. Rose Latoul from Oakland, who I was organizing with, selling pies in Oakland as part of the 10,000 Pies for Black Power Blueprint campaign. Thank you for being on the study. Kever Onex from Orlando. Uhuru Kevin. John D. Henry. Uhuru comrades. All right, sorry. I'm trying to do a laptop, a phone, and an iPad all at once. But Evan Garner tuning in from Asheville, North Carolina. Roy Ubox, Uhuru. Nathan Lumumba, welcome. Hans Tambe. Vinicius Farias. Jamshid Dien. Stephen Hollingsworth. Jamshid Dien, okay. Uhuru, Crone Life, Jasp from Oakland, who I had the honor of meeting at the Uhuru House on Thanksgiving on Thursday. Welcome to the Spear Study. Stephen Hollingsworth is here in St. Joe, Missouri. Uhuru, welcome. So, we have lots of supporters here on the Spear Study. That I appreciate that. Johan Bedingfield is going to return $10 on December 3rd. If you want to donate Stephen Hollingsworth, you're going to go to blackpowerblueprint.org. And that is our flip cause for this current phase of Black Power Blueprint. Evan Garner, Uhuru, I want to return $10 in stolen resources to this study. So that gets us up to $20 of our $75 goal. Our $75 goal is now at $55, and I am pledging $25 to this study. And that will get us to $30 left on the study goal. And we are on a timeline that is not set by us. Like I said, we're under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. So the Uhuru Solidarity Movement makes a pledge with the Solidarity Spear Study that the Solidarity Spear Study will raise a certain amount of resources to the African Revolution every year. So we're on that timeline. And so if we don't ever make our goal, it just gets rolled into the next week's study appeal, because this isn't charity. Charity is based in the parasitism of the white colonizer on the rest of the world. That is what charity is saying, I've taken everything from you, and here are some crumbs that you can have so that you don't starve to death. This is a stance of solidarity. Charity, as chair of Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jesse Neville, had said, it really stuck with me in the presentation that Jesse made during a recent Days of Reparations to African People event it was either in New York or Boston. But he said, charity alleviates the guilt of white people somewhat. Charity doesn't do anything to alleviate the suffering of people, at any root or radical level. And that is what reparations will do to the African Revolution. White reparations to African people, to these programs for economic development and self-determination, are rapidly and in real time transforming the conditions of colonialism and building Black power, dual and contending Black power, so that Black people can feed, clothe, and house themselves. And that is the positive vision of the future that we want everyone to get behind, because imperialism, capitalism is in crisis. You cannot be a parasite forever, especially not at this rate. We have almost killed the host, almost killed the entire planet with this system of parasitic capitalism, and it's urgent that we overturn these conditions now so that everybody can live, everybody can share the earth. So the Black Power Blueprint is the positive vision of the future, advanced by the African People's Education and Defense Fund, and it is dramatically and materially changing the world. And I want to really appreciate Kitty Reilly, who's been just tireless in building the Black Power Blueprint under the leadership of the Deputy Chair Ona Zanea-Shatella in St. Louis, Missouri. I mean, you relocated there 15 months ago. I mean, it's just been nonstop ever since. It's just, there hasn't been a break, I'm sure.
Uhuru, Valerie, I want to do $15 in reparations to this study to go to the Black Power Blueprint.
Uhuru.
I really, yes, it's like, in the white world, we can get accustomed to seeing always the poverty of African people. I noted it. I remembered in kindergarten that I started noticing that the African community was always really poor.
Mm-hmm.
You could never quite understand it, but now I have an analysis. But I can't stand it. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live like that. Where I go to drive to the white community to get food. It's like, and before, always in the movement, of course, we don't live in the African community. We
Mm-hmm.
organize in the white community and live in the white community, where we organize our neighbors and friends and so on. But we have the honor of, going to the African community for forums, and programs. And that's exactly how I learned about what the conditions were, by hearing African people from the audience talking and addressing the conditions of life around the police violence, whatever, the poverty, the social services trying to take their children, foster care stealing their children, and making an economy for white people to have these children. It's part of the genocide. But it's like we don't live under colonialism. We observe it. We don't live under colonialism. We go home. At the end of the day, you go home into the white community, and all of a sudden you're passing Trader Joe's and you're passing Publix and another grocery store, and you got 3 Walgreens and CVS's and whatever. I mean, you got all these amenities, and you can pick up something to eat on the way home, and the stress level goes back down. You got this little pocket, But it's obscene, and it's short-lived, and it's not really an alternative. It's so short-lived, and when you see at whose expense, and now it's like blowback, it's all coming back on the white community, because after all, the fires are really a direct result of climate change, greedy politicians who didn't carry out controlled burns for the past 10 years, and all this stuff, and people are getting poisoned living in their penthouses in San Francisco from a fire 2.5 hours away. I mean, it's untenable. We can actually, under the leadership of the African working class, those upon whom the entire social system was built at their expense, that is the leadership, that is the ones who must get the boot off their neck, not observing those who must get the boot off their neck.
Mm-hmm.
It is the heart of the future of humanity is with the African working class that was the basis of this parasitic economic social system. And it will just be the most unflowering of the most beautiful world we could ever want, because we'll be able to contribute to it. We'll be contributing to that. That's what we're doing now when we contribute to build the Black Power blueprint. We're transforming. People say, oh, what is to transform one area? Are you kidding? The Vietnamese started with, 7 people with no shoes on as their soldiers, their army, their liberators. The Palestinians started an entire economy with sewing machines and started sewing those kaffirs, the scarves that represent, Palestine and Arab resistance that you see everybody wear as a cultural statement and/or, they think it's a fashion or whatever. I mean, people start, and they had no state. Just like Africans have a state, but it's Africa. That's their land base. But here they are in St. Louis or Detroit or Oakland or wherever. I mean, this is real. It's material change, and so appreciate. Go on blackpowerblueprint.org and make a donation now. Yeah,
Uhuru. So we have links for getting involved with the Giving Tuesday campaign, so that you can RSVP to that Eventbrite link or to the Facebook event and get more information on how you can support Black Power Blueprint and its transformation of North St. Louis, which will be repeated in every city in America because of support of people like you watching right now who unite with us that say no more genocide in our name. And I'm ready to defect and divest of the white power parasitic capitalist system and join a liberated vision of humanity under the leadership of the African working class. And that is what we are advancing here. So our total study goal today was $75, and we have raised $60 of that, so we have $15 left. But if you want to learn more about Black Power Blueprint, get ready for Giving Tuesday. On Giving Tuesday, we want to raise $20,000 on the blackpowerblueprint.org flip cause site for what Penny said, putting the HVAC into the fourplex for the housing for the African independence workforce, and to continue developing the outdoor event venue area and community gardens right near the brand new Uhuru House on West Florissant Avenue. And this is the next phase. But then in 2019, construction begins on the Uhuru Jiko Community Commercial Kitchen, which will be this new site of Uhuru Foods and Pies, as well as a meeting place. A place for people to meet, a place for people to eat. There will be a community garden there as well. There will be job training and entrepreneurship classes in the African Independence Workforce Program that will be hosted there as well. So this really, truly does represent real change that can happen right now. So if there is any other comments or any other pledges, please put them in. But we are going to have to close down or shut down for this episode of Solidarity Spear Study Live, and we will be back next Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, Rose Latouls pledging $5. Uhuru from Oakland, the birthplace of Black Power. Oakland will be returning reparations, and white people of Oakland will soon be confronted actively with the reality that our white power must be smashed by our reparations work. We can no longer ignore the reality of tent cities, Africans without housing, young African people, young African people being murdered like Nia Wilson. Our white faces bring cops to Oakland. We occupy former crack houses and claim asylum from homophobia or transphobia at the expense of the gay, queer, and trans Africans and indigenous people that can't hide out from white power. It's time to face the material reality and get under the leadership of the African working class. Oakland white folks, queers, punks, artists, health workers. This isn't a new club for white people. This is revolution in solidarity with African working class people. Uhuru rose. That is a powerful statement of solidarity from Oakland, and that is exactly the conditions of Oakland. Very well summed up is that many white artists fled to Oakland looking for cheap housing at the expense of the African working class, and it is time for all white artists, all white punks, all white queers in Oakland to reckon with that reality and say, no genocide in my name, no domestic colonialism and police containment of the African working class in my name. I'm returning reparations to the African Revolution so that nobody has a boot on their neck. And that is what we have to do. We have to move outside of ourselves and our feelings and realize the material consequences of our complicity with the system and how it is in our interests to overturn it. And it is in the interest of all people in humanity to overturn it. It's no longer aligned with white power. White power is doing nothing for you lately. White power is Elon Musk preparing rockets to shoot the 1% into space so that they don't have to take responsibility for what the, some 100 global corporations have wrought as havoc upon our environment that we're dealing with natural disasters as a result of today. So the study is at now $65. We have $10 left. If anyone has $10 to put into the study, that would be fantastic. $10 more. And I just want to say that the Uhuru Pies campaign goes on through December 24th in St. Louis and Oakland, California, bringing delicious fresh baked pies to the Grand Lake Farmers Market in Oakland. All the way up until December, there'll be pop-up pie tables. Go to uhurupies.org and choose your location to learn where you can pick up delicious Uhuru pies for the holiday. Put Black Power on your holiday table, and certainly bring that question to your friends and family members about this positive, liberated vision of the future that is on the ground right now in St. Louis. I know that my father and my mother and my brother and my cousins all know about Black Power Blueprint, and I hope that you can bring this to your holiday table and your holiday discussion to talk about how everything that we enjoy is at the expense of the African working class and the colonized masses of the world, and it doesn't have to be this way. And we can be a part of this positive vision of the future by returning the stolen, hoarded resources to the African Revolution. So I want to thank everybody who participated and made a pledge in the comments. Please go to blackpowerblueprint.org to make your pledge complete. And we'll see you next Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to salute the African People's Socialist Party, who has created this opportunity for solidarity, for white people to be in solidarity with the African Revolution. I want to salute Kitty Reilly of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which is chaired by the incredible Penny Hess, who I got to do pie baking and pie selling with this week in Oakland. And I want to salute Uhuru Solidarity Movement Chair Jesse Neville for being an incredible force throughout our really victorious Days of Reparations to African People campaign. I absolutely love that statement that, really charity, what does it alleviate? What suffering does it alleviate? It alleviates the guilt of white people temporarily. And this is not what reparations does. Reparations is building a new future, is being part of the strategy to overturn colonialism, which is the essential contradiction that is destroying the planet and crushing colonized people all over the world for our benefit. And that is what we need to put into focus during this season of consumption and where we return all of our disposable income to the 1%. Return all of your disposable income to reparations. Bring capitalism to its knees, and this is how you would do it. So I want to say Uhuru, salute to everyone that participated in this study in supporting Black Power Blueprint, and deep appreciation for my guest, Kitty Reilly. I wish that I had a better setup right now so that we could have had a side-by-side interview style format, but I hope everybody was able to hear the profound summary that Kitty was giving about the colonial contradictions in the Congo and how what's happening in St. Louis is the spark that will create the wildfire of reparations to the African community to overturn colonialism and make a better, just world for everybody. Uhuru. Kitty, would you like to say anything?
Well, I just really, really appreciate being able to be on the Burning Spears study and to be able to just let people know, the incredible projects that are happening in St. Louis and what it means for, Black power, and for African workers' power, because that's at the crux of what the reparations goes to and is all about, and it makes a material condition in the world. It is manifest. You got to come. If you haven't come to St. Louis, you've got to come. We have different work days. We'll be putting out more now, and there's just so many opportunities for you to come to St. Louis and see this for yourself and see where your resources are going. Participate in some of the volunteer work days, because it's brick by brick by brick by brick, building a liberated African economy. And that's a really powerful thing, and I really want to give reparations every bit that I can in every way to see that come about, and it is coming about, whether we give it or not. The African Revolution is moving on, so I just say, get on board. This is the ride of a lifetime. All right,
Uhuru, I unite. I'm Valerie Bronte. This is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement Solidarity Spear Study under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Uhuru, thank you.